All right, what's on everybody's mind today?
Chris Hilton, did he practice today?
Chris Hilton practiced today.
To what capacity?
Let me get my crystal ball. He was in full capacity. Yep.
We didn't see Jordan Allen on the trip to Fayetteville, and he was out on the availability.
Yeah, he's dealing with a kind of a turf toe injury right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, those injuries, as you know, we're talking about, something that just is time, and especially at the safety position, the inability to play at the level that he needs to play at.
And I also want to ask you, given Tyree Adams is out, who do you think is the sixth offensive lineman that would step in case one of the starters got hurt?
Bo Bordelon would be the next guy, depending if it's a tackle or guard. If it's a guard, Paul Mubanga would go in. So it's really depending on what that position is. So it's kind of 6A, 6B, depending on what the situation is.
Talk about Chris. Are you cautiously optimistic, reserving any kind of hope in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably are going to list him as I think we had him questionable, but he's made progress. This has been a slow process for us and him. We want to be. I think more than anything else, you don't bring a wide receiver back after this long out unless he's properly conditioned, because then you go pull a hamstring, right? It's not the leg anymore, and we're not concerned, and he's not concerned about the leg. This is much more about a conditioning element relative to soft tissue more than anything else. So, we think we're in a pretty good position there. Now this is just getting him, game ready.
Watching their run game and Le'Veon Moss, what do you see in him? Some of the tape that I saw, the big plays, right, that we saw your defense susceptible to early in the year. What do you see in their run game, and how confident are you that you guys have shorn some of those things up?
Yeah, I mean, this game is week to week, right? I mean, we're respectful of their offensive line. We think they've got a really good offensive line. They've got good schemes. The backs run hard. But we feel like what we do defensively is really sound and fundamental, and we just need to continue to be who we have been and not be susceptible to doing things like we did earlier in the year, which is not do our jobs, be 1/11th of the group. And I think that the guys have settled into, really more than anything else, trusting the guy next to him. Like, I don't have to do his job. That's not my job. And we had a lot of guys doing that earlier in the year where they were trying to do, well, I'll do his job too. You know what? That's not a good thing, because now you're leaving something open. So really good offensive line, really good running game. The back is sturdy and physical. We got to be who we are over the last few weeks. And if we do that, we feel like this is going to be a heck of a game.
Hey, Coach, just hearing the music over the loudspeaker because we're walking up to practice, just wondering, is that you guys kind of preparing for the crowd noise at A&M? And
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah. How are you anticipating that challenge being for the team? And
yeah, look, I mean, we've had it on the last couple of weeks. Part of it is, certainly the communication, but it's also about working within a tempo that doesn't keep your offensive line in its stance for 25 seconds. And I thought we got, we were probably a little less than effective in terms of snapping the ball on time. Our guys were in their stance a little too long. So this is more about, with the crowd noise, also operating in a quicker fashion too. So it's a little bit of both. Getting lined up, getting our motion quicker, all of those things with the noise.
As you look at what Mike's doing over there, do you ever see any of that kind of come back to you on tape and, a little wink and a nod to something you may have taught him? Or is that more operational and stuff you wouldn't see on film?
No, it's much more the way they play. The back end is a lot more familiar to me than the front. The front, they do some things that are a bit different than he did when he was at Notre Dame. But that's typical. You're gonna fit it to your personnel. We didn't have some of those dudes that he's got at Notre Dame. But the back end looks familiar. But again, I think this is really about Coach Elko's style and the way they play and how they play, and very thoughtful in terms of how and what they're trying to do. Right? There's a plan. In terms of their coverages match what they're doing up front and by down and distance based upon who the opponent is. Each week, there are different coverages matched with the fronts based upon who they're playing. This is not a cookie-cutter approach. This is against Mississippi State, we're going to do this. Against Arkansas, we're doing this. Against Notre Dame, we're doing this. And that's the style of a coach who clearly knows what he's doing.
Coach, the Notre Dame game that they had back in week 1, how instructive was that in just sort of understanding ways that you can maybe manipulate their offense?
Yeah. Those openers would be the same as, what's LSU look like in game 1 versus right now. It's very similar. They're a different team. Really, they look different from game 1 to right now. So, I mean, you glean a couple of things here and there, but it's a body of work that you're looking for, and in particular, what do they look like the last few weeks? And they were impressive against Missouri. Certainly. Even Mississippi State has improved dramatically from week 1 or week 2 maybe when they lost to Toledo to where they are now. So teams just get better. And so you kind of have a tendency to look towards the last few weeks to get a better read on teams.
Coach, along those same lines, how much has this team grown in that span from the first game compared to now? I know you were talking about how both teams have that similar trajectory of how you started to now. What would you say the biggest area of growth for this team has been?
Yeah, I mean, I think we didn't really have a true identity in terms of who we were, earlier in the season. We've established much more of an identity clearly on defense. We're creating, a difficult time for quarterbacks, with our edge presence. Both ends are playing really well. Our linebacker is extremely active. The tandem plays well together. We're getting plays at the safety and cornerback position. So, defensively, we're getting off the field. So, that clearly is an identity of a defense that is keeping the points down, eliminating the big plays, and getting turnovers. So clearly identity is being driven, by that play at those 3 levels. On the offensive side of the ball, I think the thing that stands out is that, the quarterback, when he needs to make plays in the toughest times, he's making plays. I mean, he's a playmaker. So you got a playmaker quarterback. You got receivers that are difficult to defend because you've got a number of them, including a tight end, and then an emerging back, and Caden Durham, who's really helped our running game. So, those pieces are kind of coming together at the right time as we work our way through the season.
Ryan, as you see the season going on, better coverage in the secondary, and sacks and disruptive plays, and a play like Weeks made Saturday. How much of defense is that confidence, that figuring out that or knowing that you can go and affect the other team, and don't have to just be kind of reactive?
Yeah, so I think it starts with you got to make some plays first, and early on, we didn't make those plays, right? We came close to making them, but, we came up a little short in making those plays. And we got behind, and it became one of those situations where we had to make a play just to stay in the game. Now we're making plays, and it's really changing the complexity of the game. So I think confidence breeds itself when you start making plays, and those guys are playing with a lot of confidence because they've made a lot of plays recently, and it builds their confidence, and they play with a bit of a swagger now.
Do you take any time this week to talk about the focus on just this weekend and not what the potential of this weekend could mean down the road?
Oh, yeah. I just spent 10 minutes talking about it, I guess. You must have heard me. Was I loud? Yeah, I mean, you got to go to Texas A&M. You got to go into that stadium in front of 127 million fans, and you got to go take something from them. And they're not going to give it to you. You got to go take it. And that requires an incredible desire and a want to. And you don't want to sit around all next week when you don't have a game and have any regrets. So you got to lay it on the table. And what the great quote, come back bloodied or come back on your shield. I mean, you got to lay it on the line. And so this is one of those games. Good? You got it. What's that? Were they here for a concert?